They scoffed when she asked for work, calling her nothing more than an Apache girl with wild dreams and no place on a ranch. But she held her ground, earned every inch of respect, and now the land they said she'd never touch answers only to her. It's the year 1886, and the dust-caked hiring yard behind Morrison's Feed and Supply is packed with weathered cowboys looking for work. The air smells of horse sweat, leather, and desperation. Then she walks in. Tazi Nahila is 17 years old, boots so worn you can see her toes through the cracked leather. Her dark hair is braided tight, and her eyes burn with fire that either gets you hired or gets you hurt. She walks straight up to Frank Morrison, the cattle baron's foreman, and says 5 words that change everything. "I want to work cattle." The silence lasts 3 heartbeats. Then the laughter starts. It spreads like wildfire through the crowd, until every man in that yard is bent over laughing. "You hear that, boys?" shouts Clem Dugan. "Little Apache girl thinks she can punch cattle with the big boys." Morrison looks at Tazi like she's a curiosity in a traveling show. "Girl, you know what cattle work is? Riding fence in blizzards, pulling breeched calves at midnight, facing down 1,000-pound bulls with nothing but rope and grit." Taji's voice doesn't waver. "My name is Taji Nahila. It means stands with courage. I can break horses, mend fence, and read weather better than most men twice my age. I can work harder, longer, and smarter than anyone you've got." The laughter gets louder. "Go home, little girl," Morrison says with finality. "This ain't work for your kind. Find yourself something more suitable." Taji memorizes every laughing face, every smirk, every assumption. Then she turns and walks away, spine straight as a rifle barrel, head held high. But at the gate, she stops and calls back, "I'll remember this day, and so will all of you." The laughter follows her down the street, but something in her voice makes the smarter men stop chuckling, something that suggests this isn't the last they'll see of Tazi Nahila. If you've ever been underestimated and proved someone wrong, drop a comment below because Taji's story is just getting started. 3 miles outside town sits the struggling Renshaw Ranch weathered house, sagging barn, fences held together by stubbornness. Leda Renshaw, widowed for 2 years, watches her life's work crumble, one broken fence post at a time. That's when Taji appears at her kitchen door. "Ma'am, I heard you might need help. I don't have money for room and board, but I can work harder than any man you've ever hired." Leda studies the girl through eyes hardened by frontier life. She's heard the stories about Apache raids, but looking at this young woman, all she sees is someone who knows what it means to fight for survival. "You got experience with cattle?" Leda asks. "Yes, ma'am. My grandfather taught me to read animals like other folks read books. I can handle horses that won't let anyone else near them." Leda makes a life-changing decision. Rooms in the bunkhouse, foods at the main table. Work starts at dawn. The ranch is in terrible shape. Thin cattle, low creek water, broken fences. But Tazi sees potential. The next morning, she's up before sunrise, already repairing fence posts when Leda emerges with coffee. Work that would have taken half a day, Taji completes before breakfast. "Lord, have mercy," Leda whispers, watching Tazi gentle a skittish mare that hasn't let anyone near her since Leda's husband died. The horse stands calm while Tazi examines her hooves. By week's end, Leda realizes she hasn't just hired help, she's found a partner. Taji works with desperate intensity, treating the struggling ranch like it's already her own. "You don't have to work so hard," Leda tells her over dinner. "I won't work you to death." Taji looks up, dark eyes reflecting lamplight. "Ma'am, this is the first place that's ever felt like home. Working hard isn't punishment, it's gratitude." Dawn comes cold and unforgiving, but Taji greets it like an old friend. In the barn, she talks to horses in her grandfather's musical Apache tones. The animals respond like flowers turning toward sun ears forward, tension melting away. Her grandfather Nalnish had been legendary for his way with horses. "Listen first," he'd taught her. "The horse will tell you everything, their fear, their pain, their heart, but you must be quiet enough to hear." Today she works with Thunder, a half-wild stallion who arrived 3 days ago, unwilling to accept human authority. Taji sees past his aggression to confusion and grief. For 30 minutes, she simply stands at the fence, breathing slowly. Gradually, Thunder's pacing slows. His pinned ears relax forward. When he finally approaches, snorting softly, Tazi knows she's won the first battle. But the war for respect extends beyond the corral. At the mercantile, whispers follow her like shadows. That's the Apache girl working for Lita. Surprised old Lita would trust one of them. Outside, Clem Dugan decides to make his second mistake. "Hey, Pocahontas, how's that cattle work treating you?" Bet old Lita's regretting her charity. His friends laugh on cue. But this time, Taji doesn't just walk away. She faces Clem directly. "My name is Taji, and if you want to know how the cattle work is going, you're welcome to come see for yourself. That is, if you think you can keep up." The challenge hangs in the air like smoke. Clem's face reddens. His friends shift uncomfortably. They'd expected submission, not confidence backed by genuine skill. Taji loads her supplies and drives away, leaving Clem sputtering. But dark clouds are gathering on the horizon, and not just the kind that bring rain. The drought arrives like a slow-burning fever, escalating into catastrophe. By July, the creek has dwindled to a muddy trickle, and cattle cluster around it like refugees. Lita stands on her porch each morning, scanning the merciless blue sky. "We'll have to sell the herd," she says one evening, voice hollow with defeat. "Can't watch them die of thirst." But Taji isn't ready to surrender. That night, she walks the property under starlight, searching for signs her grandfather taught her to recognize. Nalnish had possessed an almost mystical ability to find underground springs, reading the land like a book written in animal trails and plant growth. "Water seeks life," she remembers him saying. "Where the animals go when surface water fails, there you will find the deep springs." For 3 days, Taji maps every creature's movement: where rabbits hole up, where birds gather, where insects thrive despite drought. Slowly, a picture emerges of underground water flowing like a hidden river. On the 4th morning, she approaches Leda with a proposal that sounds like madness. "I want to dig a new well. Right there." She points to a patch of parched earth that looks no different from anywhere else. "Tazi, honey, we had a dowser out here 2 years ago. He said no water for miles in that direction. Your dowser looked for water the white man's way. I'm looking the way my people always have, by watching the living things that depend on it." The ranch hands think she's lost her mind. "Girl's finally cracked," mutters old Pete. "Son's fried her brain." But Leda, desperate enough to try anything, gives permission. For 3 days, Taji works with shovel and pickaxe in 100-degree heat. The hands bet on how deep she'll go before giving up. By day 2, she's down 12 feet with nothing but dry dirt. On day 3, just as the sun reaches its zenith, Tazi's shovel strikes wet sand that clings to the metal like hope. 30 minutes later, water erupts from the earth like a prayer, answered clear, cold, abundant. The sound as it hits the surface is the most beautiful thing any of them have ever heard. Even the skeptics are stunned. Pete removes his hat, scratching his gray head. "I'll be damned. How'd she know?" Leda throws her arms around Taji, tears streaming. "You saved us. You saved the whole ranch." But water alone won't solve all their problems. Word of the new well brings attention from people who view their sudden good fortune with suspicion and envy. The rider appears like a mirage through heat waves, a tall man on a silver horse, moving with easy confidence. As he draws closer, details emerge that make Taji's hand drift toward the kitchen rifle. He wears faded cavalry blue, and his bearing suggests military training. His horse is too fine for a drifter, and surveying equipment speaks of purpose. "Good afternoon," the stranger calls. "I'm looking for Mrs. Letta Renshaw. Name's Elias Crane, Territorial Land Surveyor." Leda emerges, wiping flour-dusted hands. "That's me. What business does the territory have with my ranch?" Elias dismounts with fluid grace. "Actually, ma'am, I'm here on private business. Heard about your remarkable well. Wanted to see how you found water where others failed." His gaze finds Tazi, taking in her defensive posture, the way her eyes track his every movement. You must be the Apache girl with the gift for finding water. Tazi has learned to be wary of white men who speak of Apache gifts, especially those in military uniforms. I'm Taji Nahila. I don't have any gifts that can't be explained by paying attention to what the land tells you. Over dinner, Leda insists he stay. Elias reveals information that changes everything. There's been unusual activity in land purchases around here. Someone's buying up property fast and quiet, paying above market value. The purchases follow a specific pattern, like someone's trying to control access to something valuable. Water, maybe? Or railroad routes not yet announced. And you're telling us this because? Tazi asks. Because I've seen what happens when big money moves into small communities. Small ranchers get squeezed out through methods that stay barely legal. If someone's targeting this area, Mrs. Renshaw's sudden water fortune makes her very attractive. What kind of methods? Taji asks, though she suspects the answer. The kind that start with generous offers, escalate to administrative pressure through banks and officials, and end with accidents that leave widows grateful to sell for whatever they can get. The implications settle like a storm cloud. Their newfound security may have painted a target on their backs that they're not equipped to handle. The Langdon carriage arrives Tuesday morning, polished and imposing as a banker's promise. Benjamin Langdon III sits like a king surveying his future domain, soft hands folded over a leather satchel containing either salvation or destruction. Langdon owns the largest ranch in the territory, 30,000 acres, a mansion rivaling anything in Denver, enough political influence to make governors return his calls. He's never been told no by anyone who matters. Lita watches from her kitchen window. Benjamin Langdon himself. Wonder what brings royalty to our little patch. 3 men dismount. Langdon, soft-bodied in clothes that never saw honest work. His foreman, Jack Sterling, hard-faced with a reputation for violence, and a pale lawyer with a leather portfolio. Mrs. Renshaw. Langdon calls with practiced warmth. I'm Benjamin Langdon, and we have much to discuss. Lita steps onto her porch, spine straight despite arthritis. Mr. Langdon, what brings you to the Renshaw place? Business. I represent investors interested in consolidating grazing land. We're prepared to make you a very generous offer. The lawyer steps forward. 30% above assessed value, immediate payment, relocation assistance. It's suspiciously good. Under normal circumstances, refusing would be foolish. But these aren't normal circumstances. Mind if I ask why you're so interested in my particular ground? Lita asks. We believe in this area's potential. Sometimes it takes vision to see what others miss. Taji steps forward. Work clothes dusty, hands dirty from morning labor. In Langdon's finery, she looks like exactly what she is, a working ranch hand with no social standing. What about the water rights? She asks, cutting through polite atmosphere like a blade. Langdon turns to look at her as if noticing hired help for the first time. I beg your pardon? The new well producing more water than any other source in the county. Are you including rights to that water? Sterling steps forward with easy menace. This is a conversation between Mr. Langdon and Mrs. Renshaw. Nobody asked for the help's opinion. The words hang like gunpowder waiting for a spark, but Leta's voice cuts through tension like a cavalry saber. This help found that water when your boss's dowsers said there wasn't any. This help saved my ranch when everyone else had written it off. And this help has as much right to speak as anyone who's shed blood for this land. Leta transforms from polite widow to the frontier woman who's survived 40 years of hardship. So, if you want to discuss my land, you'll show proper respect to the person who made it worth discussing. Langdon's civility mask slips entirely. Mrs. Renshaw, I'd be careful about letting sentiment cloud judgment. This is business, and business has no room for emotional attachments to employees. This young woman is family to me now, and family doesn't abandon family for money, no matter how generous. The rejection hits Langdon like a physical blow. I see. Well, Mrs. Renshaw, I do hope you'll reconsider. Sometimes what seems like generosity today becomes less available tomorrow. The frontier can be dangerous for those without proper protection. The threat is subtle but unmistakable. As they return to their carriage, Taji feels the weight of what they've done, made an enemy of the territory's most powerful man, in defense of principles that won't stop bullets. But watching Leta's proud bearing, seeing fire still burning in the older woman's eyes, Taji realizes she's found something worth fighting for, and someone worth fighting beside. The horse arrives at dawn like a harbinger of chaos, a blood-bay mare, dark red as spilled wine, with eyes like coals and hooves striking sparks. Someone drove her into the Renshaw pasture during the night, not penned or led, but driven like a weapon. The other horses shy away, sensing violence that radiates from her like heat. She wheels and kicks at anything near, teeth bared in perpetual snarl. This isn't just wild, this is an animal broken by cruelty and rebuilt into something dangerous. That's Demon's daughter, Pete mutters. Old Santana's blood mare, heard she's killed 2 men, crippled a third. Who'd turn loose a killer horse in our pasture? Tazi doesn't need to guess. She sees Langdon's handiwork in every line of the mare's tormented posture. This is psychological warfare. Introduce chaos. Force them to deal with an impossible problem. Hope stress breaks their resolve. We need her out, Leta says, voice tight with worry. She'll hurt the other horses. But removing the mare isn't simple. She's positioned herself in the pasture center like a red queen, and any approach sends her into a frenzy that would cripple anyone foolish enough to get within range. Ranch hands draw straws. Jimmy Rodriguez draws short and spends 20 minutes trying to lasso her from horseback. It ends with him face first in dirt and his horse limping away with bite marks. By midday, word has spread about the killer horse. Men ride out from neighboring ranches to watch, some offering advice, others placing bets on how long before someone gets seriously hurt. Clem Dugan shows up with his usual hangers-on. Bet that Apache girl's grandfather never taught her to handle a real horse, one that fights back. The comment strikes like a match to gunpowder. Taji has endured weeks of challenges to her competence, but watching good horses suffer because of people's dismissal of her abilities pushes her past breaking point. Clear the fence, she says quietly. Everyone back to the house. Taji, honey, that animal's dangerous, Leta protests. She's hurt people. She's hurt people who tried to break her with force. My grandfather taught me that some spirits can't be broken, only understood. For an hour, Taji simply sits in the pasture middle, close enough to be in the mare's territory but far enough to avoid triggering immediate attack. Gradually, the mare's rigid alertness softens. Her ears, pinned flat in permanent anger, begin to flicker forward. When Taji finally speaks, it's in Apache words about respect, understanding, kinship between creatures that have known betrayal and pain. I see you, sister, she whispers. I see the hurt they put in you, the fear they taught you, but you don't have to carry it anymore. The mare steps forward, then another step. When she's close enough for Taji to see old scars, evidence of whips and spurs and casual cruelty, the young woman extends her hand palm up, offering nothing but gentleness. The touch is lighter than morning dew. The mare's muzzle barely brushes Taji's palm before pulling back, but it's enough. Trust offered and accepted. As sunset paints the sky gold and crimson, Taji walks the blood mare around the pasture like an old friend, the killer horse docile under her gentle guidance. The watchers are silent, awed by something they don't understand but recognize as remarkable. Even Clem has nothing to say. Never seen anything like that in 40 years, Pete whispers, removing his hat in unconscious respect. But Taji barely hears the praise. She's thinking about the scars on the mare's flanks, about the cruelty that created such damage, and about Langdon's message. Message received. But the response won't be what he expected. Word of Taji taming the blood mare spreads like wildfire. But the story changes with each telling until nobody's sure what actually happened. Some say Apache magic, others an ancient song. A few insist it was staged. But the truth is, stranger, a young Apache woman accomplished what the territory's most experienced horsemen couldn't, through patience, understanding, and skills passed down through generations. The reaction splits predictably. Those harboring suspicions about Indian ways see confirmation of their fears, proof Taji possesses unnatural powers marking her as dangerous. Others, particularly working cowboys who know horses, recognize genuine skill and view her with grudging respect. At Murphy's saloon, debate rages nightly. I'm telling you, she's got some kind of power, insists Ned Talbot. No natural way a girl that size handles a killer horse. Power, my ass, counters Tom Bradley. That was horsemanship, pure and simple. Best I've ever seen. Girl's got a gift. But it ain't supernatural, it's skill. But the most telling reaction comes from territory power brokers, who view Taji's growing reputation as a threat to natural order. Langdon's plan to introduce chaos has backfired, transforming Taji from curiosity into a symbol. This has gone far enough, Langdon declares to his lieutenants. People are starting to think that girl is some kind of miracle worker. If we don't act soon, every small rancher will think they can stand up to legitimate business interests. The campaign that follows is subtle but vicious. Langdon's men spread whispers about Apache raids, reminding people of families lost to Indian violence. They question whether it's safe having one of them so close to town. Fear-mongering peaks when Clem Dugan, emboldened by whiskey and wounded pride, decides on direct action. He gathers like-minded young men and rides out with torches and rope, planning to run the Apache girl out before she corrupts more folk. But they've underestimated both Taji's vigilance and the number of people who've decided she's worth protecting. Elias Crane sees the torchlight procession and fires a warning shot from the general store roof, alerting half the town. Within minutes, Sheriff Morrison leads a posse in pursuit while other citizens follow. The confrontation happens in the Renshaw yard. Torchlight, throwing dancing shadows across faces twisted by fear and anger. Dugan's men find themselves surrounded not just by intended victims, but by townspeople who've come to prevent whatever ugliness was planned. That's far enough, Clem, Sheriff Morrison says with 20 years of authority. Don't know what you thought you were doing with torches and rope, but it ends now. Dugan's face flushes with whiskey and embarrassment. We're protecting this community, Sheriff. That girl's dangerous. She's got powers that ain't natural. I saw her do something remarkable with skill and patience, and I'm seeing you do something stupid with ignorance and fear, which poses a real threat to this community. Dr. Marcus Henley steps forward from the crowd, medical bag in one hand, moral authority shining like armor. I've seen what this young woman can do. When the Patterson baby was dying of fever, she identified medicinal herbs that saved his life. When old Pete's horse went lame, she diagnosed and treated the injury better than any veterinarian in the territory. If having skills our grandfathers forgot makes someone dangerous, then we should all hope to be so threatening. Faced with united disapproval, Dugan's mob dissolves, members slinking away with shame of men who discovered their courage was really cowardice dressed in righteous clothing. Sheriff Morrison approaches Taji with respect due someone who's earned her place through merit. Miss Nahila, I want you to know that not everyone judges a person by heritage. Some of us still believe in measuring folks by actions, and yours have spoken louder than words. The sheriff's public endorsement marks a turning point. Taji's no longer just the Apache girl working for Leda. She's become a symbol, a reminder that excellence can emerge from unexpected places, and courage often wears faces society has written off. But symbols attract attention from quarters where being noticed is dangerous, and Langdon is far from finished. The challenge comes as a territorial contract, a cattle drive testing every skill Taji has developed. The government needs 500 head delivered to Fort Collins to feed the garrison through winter, accepting bids from local ranchers. It's the opportunity that could save the Renshaw Ranch permanently, providing enough profit to pay all debts and establish a secure future. But it's exactly the high-stakes situation Langdon can't let slip away. The route goes through Demon's Canyon, Leda explains, studying specifications. 20 miles of the most treacherous country in the territory, narrow passes, loose rock, more ways for things to go wrong than a person can count. Taji traces the route, noting choke points where saboteurs could create maximum chaos. He'll try to stop us in the canyon, perfect place to spook a herd and make it look accidental. Maybe we should pass, Leda suggests, though defeat in her voice makes clear they can't afford to. Take something smaller, safer. But Taji has watched Leda struggle too long. We're taking this contract, and we're delivering every head on time and intact. Langdon wants to play games? Let's show him what real ranchers can do. Preparation reveals how far Taji's reputation has spread. Cowboys who once laughed now seek her advice on weather patterns and cattle management. Neighboring ranchers offer to loan their best horses and most experienced hands. Even Sheriff Morrison visits to offer unofficial support. Can't provide official assistance, but if you need extra riders who know the territory and can handle trouble, I might know a few good men. The herd they assemble is magnificent, 500 head of the finest cattle the territory produces, their coats gleaming with health. Tazi surveys them with a general's pride, knowing every animal represents not just profit, but vindication. The drive begins at dawn on a crisp October morning. Tazi riding Point and Leda following in the chuck wagon despite arthritis and everyone's protests. "I've never missed a major event in this ranch's history," Leda declares, settling on the wagon seat with queenly determination. Not starting now. For 3 days, everything proceeds smoothly. Cattle move steadily through open range. Weather holds fair. The crew works with smooth efficiency. Tazi rides among them like a conductor directing a symphony, anticipating problems before they develop. But approaching Demon's Canyon, trouble signs multiply. Fresh horse tracks suggest riders paralleling their route. Cattle grow nervous, sensing something wrong. The attack comes as designed to look natural rocks tumbling from canyon walls precisely when the herd is most vulnerable, spoking lead steers and triggering a stampede threatening to scatter 500 head across 20 miles of wilderness. But Langdon's men underestimated Taji's preparation and understanding of cattle psychology. Instead of fighting the stampede, she rides with it, using voice and positioning to gradually turn panicked animals in a wide circle that brings them back under control before they scatter beyond recovery. The battle fought on horseback through dust clouds and chaos sees Taji's crew facing Langdon's saboteurs in running fights across the canyon floor. When dust settles, 3 of Langdon's men are down and the rest retreating. But victory comes at a cost. Leta, thrown from the chuck wagon when the stampede began, lies unconscious with a head injury. Dr. Henley, who'd insisted on accompanying the drive, works frantically to stabilize her while Taji faces the most important decision of her young life. "We need to get her back to town," Dr. Henley says, voice tight with concern. "She needs real medical attention, not what I can provide with a trail kit." But returning means abandoning the drive, forfeiting the contract, surrendering the ranch's future to Langdon's mercies. Everything they've worked for dies with this crisis moment. Tazi looks at the unconscious woman who's been more mother than her blood relatives, then at cattle whose safe delivery represents salvation for everyone supporting their cause. The choice should be impossible, but she already knows what Leda would tell her. Dr. Henley goes back with Leda, she announces. "I'm taking the herd through to Fort Collins." The protest is immediate and unanimous. "You can't run a drive this size yourself," Pete argues. "It's suicide." "Then it's good I won't be doing it alone. Every man here chose to ride with us knowing the stakes. Question is whether you trust me to get these cattle through, or whether Langdon was right about what happens when people like us try to compete with people like him." Pete's laughter breaks the silence, not mockery, but amazed appreciation of genuine leadership. "Hell, girl, after what we just saw you do with a spooked herd, I'd follow you through hell's gates if you asked polite." The unanimous agreement marks the moment Taji stops being the Apache girl who works for Leda and becomes something else entirely, a leader who's earned respect through actions rather than inherited it through birth accidents. The cattle drive limps into Fort Collins 3 days behind schedule, but with every head accounted for and a crew forged into something resembling a military unit through shared hardship and mutual respect. Taji rides at the front, no longer the uncertain girl laughed out of Morrison's hiring yard, but a young woman who's proven herself under the most demanding circumstances. Major Harrison, the Army quartermaster, accepts delivery with professional thoroughness, noting the livestock's excellent condition despite the challenging journey. "Miss Nahila," he says, extending his hand in respect that would have been unthinkable from a military officer months earlier. "This is some of the finest cattle I've seen delivered under contract. Your reputation for reliability is well earned." The payment represents more than money. It's validation of everything Taji and Leda have worked to build, proof that excellence can triumph over prejudice when backed by unshakable determination. But the real victory becomes apparent returning to Cedar Ridge, where they discover how much the town has changed. News of their successful contract completion has spread like water through parched ground, carrying a shift in public perception no amount of Langdon's manipulation can reverse. The most significant change waits at the ranch, where Leda sits on the front porch with legal documents spread across a small table and an expression of mixed pride and sorrow. "How are you feeling?" Taji asks, noting the bandage around Leda's head and her careful movements. "Like I've been kicked by a mule and lived to tell about it," Leda replies with a weak smile. "But Dr. Henley says I'll recover fully, given time and rest, which brings me to what we need to discuss." Leda, forced to confront her mortality during those terrifying unconscious moments, has made a decision building in her heart for months. "I'm too old for this life. The drive proved it. When that stampede started, I froze up like a green kid, instead of reacting like the experienced rancher I thought I was. This operation needs someone younger, stronger, smarter at the helm." Taji's protest is immediate and heartfelt. "Leda, you built this place from nothing. It's your home, your life's work. You can't just—" "I'm not giving it up. I'm passing it on to someone who's earned it through blood, sweat, and wisdom. Someone who's proven she can handle whatever the territory throws at her." The legal documents tell the story in formal language that can't capture the emotional weight. Deed transfer forms, signed and notarized, that will make Taji Nahila legal owner of the Renshaw Ranch. All 800 acres, water rights, livestock, and buildings representing home to both women. "I can't accept this," Taji whispers, hands trembling as she studies papers that would transform her from hired help to property owner in the space of a signature. "It's too much. I haven't done enough to earn something like this." Leda's laughter is gentle, but firm. "Child, you found water where experts said there was none. You saved this ranch from bankruptcy with skill and determination. You faced down the territory's most powerful man and won. You completed a cattle drive that grown men said was impossible. What more do you think you need to prove your worth?" The signing ceremony takes place that evening, with Sheriff Morrison as witness and Elias Crane providing legal expertise. As Taji's pen moves across the deed transfer, she thinks about the long journey from Morrison's hiring yard humiliation to owning her own ranch. But ownership brings responsibility, and Taji's first act as the new proprietor of what will soon be known as the Nahila Ranch reveals the kind of leader she intends to be. "I want to hire more hands, specifically Maria Santos and her sister Carmen. They've been sleeping in the church stable for 2 weeks because nobody will give Apache women honest work." The decision scandalizes some and inspires others, but establishes a principle that will define the Nahila Ranch. Competence and character matter more than heritage or gender, and everyone deserves a chance to prove their worth through honest labor. As autumn gives way to winter, visitors find something unprecedented: a successful operation run entirely by women, managed with traditional Apache wisdom and modern ranching techniques that produce results superior to anything their male competitors achieve. The transformation completes on a crisp December morning when Benjamin Langdon rides up, no longer the confident oligarch who'd arrived with threats disguised as offers, but a diminished man whose empire is crumbling under his own arrogance. "Miss Nahila," he says, voice lacking former authority, "I'd like to discuss purchasing some of your surplus cattle. I understand you're running the finest herd in the territory." The irony is delicious. The man who'd threatened to destroy them now begs to buy their livestock. Tazi studies his face, noting desperation he's trying to hide, the knowledge that his ranch struggles while hers prospers. "Mr. Langdon, I'll consider your offer, but I should warn you my cattle aren't for sale to just anyone. I only do business with people who demonstrate honor, integrity, and respect for all community members." The message is clear. Redemption is possible, but requires genuine change rather than expedience. As Langdon rides away to consider her terms, Taji returns to work checking fence lines, planning next year's breeding program, preparing for challenges successful ranchers always face. From the kitchen window, Lita watches her protege with satisfaction and pride. The scared, rejected girl who'd arrived at her doorstep has become everything she'd hoped and more. A leader, a pioneer, and a symbol that the frontier's promises are available to anyone brave enough to claim them. Let 'em laugh, Tazi murmurs to herself, watching her cattle graze peacefully in pastures watered by the well she found and fenced by posts she set herself. I've got a ranch to run. If you thought these were incredible, you won't want to miss what happens in this next video.